Welcome back to Crunching Your Grow. I just had a little hiccup there with where I was on which screen, but welcome back to Crunching Your Growth. I'm your host, Phil Masiello, and this week we're diving into one of the most powerful tools every entrepreneur and brand needs. And I'm not so sure that everybody truly understands it, but it's storytelling. I know we talk about it. I know we say it. I know you hear it as a marketer. I know everybody hears it when they do a startup and they hear you got to be in storytelling, storytelling, storytelling. But I very rarely do I see somebody execute it correctly. So tonight we have Jon Goehring. He's the founder of StoryTrust Media, a master at helping brands cut through the noise and build real trust with their audience, from podcasting to audiobooks to voiceovers. And Jon knows exactly how to turn stories into lasting connections. So if you want your brand message to resonate and stick, this is the episode you don't want to miss. So let's bring him in. We'll get him to explain a little bit more in depth about, really what is storytelling and what are we doing with it, and how to execute it. What are the keys to it? Again, because I see it all the time. We work with brands and they say, oh, we have to tell our story, but they don't really know how to do it. And frankly, we spend more time trying to get the story out of them so that we can help them tell that story visually, with words, on ads, on social media. So let's bring Jon in. Jon, welcome. Thanks for taking the time to be on tonight.
Phil, it's an honor. Thank you so much for having me on. And you got to love live TV, right?
I just added like two things, and now I never know where I am. So I have like screens everywhere. It's like my desk. My wife walks into my office and there's just screens everywhere and people on screens and people talking to me on screens. And she just shakes her head and walks out. And sometimes, because we have a system. So because now, since COVID, obviously, just like everybody else, we fragmented. Everybody went and is working remotely. We do still have two offices, but I mostly like to work at home. But sometimes I forget to turn them off. And so I turn them off and they're still on one screen, and I'm going about my day, and then I'm talking and I'm making phone calls and they're like sending me messages. You were still on, right?
You've
So,
made it too complicated.
oh, I just, that's my story, my life. It's overcomplication. That should be my middle name.
Love it.
It's
Well,
true.
speaking of stories, thanks for having me on because I'm excited to dive into this conversation, Phil.
Yeah, it's great. I'd love to hear. Why don't we, seriously, I meant it when I said it. People talk about storytelling. We talk about it all the time. But I'm not so sure that most people really get it, really understand what that means to be
Right.
telling a story about their brand. I think that they always interpret that as the pitch, and it's not really the pitch, you know? So I'll give you an example. I don't know. Again, I'm a brand person, so I always think about brands. I the brand Graza olive oil, very
Yep.
simple, right? There's
Yep.
plenty of olive oil out there. The world, if 20% of the olive oil companies went out of business, we'd still have plenty of olive oil.
Yeah.
But these guys hit a nerve. And in my opinion, the story they were telling was that their core market didn't understand all the complication with these, for lack of a better word, snooty sort of olive oil brands that were saying, oh, it has to be in this type of bottle and it's got to be beautiful and blah, 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 blah. When really they wanted to know was, which one do I use to cook with and which one do I use to eat on my salad? And they took it and went to sizzle and drizzle. And the way that they launched was really telling that story about the simplicity of taking the complexity out of olive oil, making it simple and making it easy for people to understand. And then, they talked about the olive oil, how it was grown, et cetera, et cetera. But I think, in my opinion, the essence was that was sort of the story.
Yeah. And as Italians, that's very, very important.
Yeah. Are you Italian?
Yes, sir.
Oh,
I am on mom's side. Okay. I'm half German, half Italian, but like
oh, okay.
that's important. We love our olive oil.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt about it. That's a different, in my opinion, that's a different um, customer, right? Like, I
Yeah.
love a good olive oil. And
Yeah.
um, and I know what I look for because I've been around food for my entire life. But truly, there's a segment of the population that doesn't know, and that's
Right.
who they appealed to, right? Under 45 people who were like, which olive oil do I use to cook? You're making this too crazy. I get on
Yeah.
social media and I see that this olive oil company is telling me this olive's bad, this olive oil's bad, this olive oil's bad, and here they come with drizzle and sizzle, and here's the easy way to use it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great testament to actually one of the key rules of storytelling, and that is dumb it down. That's one of the things that we as entrepreneurs think is that for some reason other people know way more about our brand, our industry, what we do than we think they know. And unfortunately, the fact is, a lot of people just they have no idea. I mean, everybody lives in their own little bubble, right? We all live in our own worlds. Dumb it down. What seems so dumb and beginner to you actually isn't to someone else. And if it is, they'll appreciate hearing it again.
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah. Um, but are there some fundamental steps to building storytelling for a brand?
Yeah, I would say that one of the biggest another big mistake that we make is that we divorce our brand from ourselves too often, especially for solopreneurs, entrepreneurs who we think that our brand, our company has to be one thing, and that our own personality or or personal life has to be another thing. I'm not saying work life balance and integration isn't important, but I am saying that you are best equipped to help solve a problem for someone that you have overcome yourself, right?
Yeah.
So whether that's in the marketing space, like don't forget to do your own marketing. Don't forget about what you've done to overcome for your own brand, and then you're in the best position to help other brands do the same thing. And that's really all storytelling, right? It's
Yeah.
hey, I've gone on this hero's journey, so to speak, and I have done this for myself and maybe for other clients ahead of you. Now this is what I can do for you. That's a form of storytelling, and so many people, so many brands try to divorce themselves from the clients that they're serving, and that's not always the best thing to do.
Yeah. That's a great point because we spend a lot of time trying to coach brands, especially the founder of the brand, to get out there and make quick videos on social. It's the best form right now of really getting your message out inexpensively and easily because you don't need all the equipment. You can do it with your iPhone. You can just, uh, do it because it's more authentic that way anyway. And so many people are afraid to make videos.
Mhm.
And I think to myself, why? Like, what's going to happen? And I think people are afraid of the pushback that they'll get from social media or the comments that they'll get or that people will comment negatively. But who cares? We tell them all the time, who cares? We'll take care of weeding that out. Um, but you're 100% right because it's more authentic. People want authenticity and they want to know who they're buying from. Why should I buy your product? What
Right.
makes you different than somebody else? And so therefore, but if you can get on there and tell your story and explain why you started, what the problem is that you're solving and what you saw. And then there's the brands that don't have that
Yeah.
just sort of built a Me Too product and they really don't have a story. So
Right, right. And remember, every good story has four C's. I like to call them the four C's. And they're the characters, they're the climax, and the challenge, and the conclusion. So every good story has characters, right? And what we have to remember, this is why I love Donald Miller's story brand framework so much, and why I've kind of modeled a lot of my content creation business after it, is that remember, we are not the hero in our story, we are
right.
the guide. Right. And that is so, so, so important because that's one of the biggest mistakes I see all the time is, hey, I'm the hero of this story. I have taken this brand from its infancy to 10x growth, whatever. And I think that's a little bit misguided. While it's certainly important to show the effectiveness and the transformation, we have to remember our role as the character in the story that we're telling as a brand. And if we continue being the guide throughout instead of falling into the trap of wanting to become the hero, that resonates more with our audience.
Yeah, that's a good point. it's about them. That's
Yes.
another thing that we talk about quite often with brands is it's not about you, it's about them. What's a lot of times when they build content, whether even if it's written content, especially on Amazon, when they start talking about, putting in their bullet points or building bullet points, for their product, it's always about, we source the best olives, we source the best this, we source the best that.
Right.
But, you know, that's not really the point. The point is, what's the benefit to somebody buying it? What do they get out of it? What's the payoff for them? Because that's what they're buying it for. They want the payoff.
Yeah. Yeah. Ultimately, there's this term in advertising we talk about. It's called puffery. I don't know if you heard of this concept of puffery is basically making claims that cannot be proven either right or wrong, but they're just claims of superiority without anything to back them up. So I think of the movie Elf when Elf walks into the New York City coffee shop that says "World's Best Coffee" outside. He walks in, he says, "Congratulations, you've done it! It's the world's best coffee." Right? And we laugh because it's so ridiculous, but brands literally put that stuff out there all the time, expecting somebody like Elf to come in and say, "Congratulations! I
Yeah.
can't believe I finally found the world's smartest entrepreneur, the world's best olive oil." And why, as brands, we laugh at that scene in that movie, but then we make that same mistake and we just put out these puffed up claims, puffery as we call it, right? And it's really silly to me, honestly. We don't tell our story. We don't take the time to tell our story. We just throw out claims that nobody can prove. They're not even backed up by anything.
Yeah. Well, I'm guilty of doing that. Been doing that.
Same, same.
Been doing
It's
that for
funny though.
been doing that for years with my own brands. But you
Well,
know,
you are the best, right? I mean, you can back it up.
I don't know about that, man. I don't know about that. No, but it's true. When we were in the skincare business, in the beauty business for a while, and you make a lot of claims in that area, but they're really focused on that's really, in my opinion, the industry that focuses on the payoff for the end user the best,
Yeah,
because they're always talking about you're gonna this product will greatly reduce your fine lines and wrinkles. And every woman goes, I want to reduce my fine lines and wrinkles. A friend of mine developed this product, which is a temporary facelift in a jar, and it really works, but for about 6 hours. So you put it on before you
yeah,
go out to dinner or whatever, and it truly works. So it's lose 10 years off your face for 6 or 7 hours, right? That's the payoff. Is I look younger, and I'm going to go to this party where there's going to be plenty of pictures being taken, and I want to look my best. Certainly, if I go and I get Botox injected in and I get this, I'm going to look sort of funny, but here it's just tightening my skin, and
yeah,
it truly does work.
yeah.
So
Yeah, and that's a great example of so many potential stories in a product like that. I mean, who wouldn't wanna look 10 years younger, right? And what does that also lead to? I think that's the key question. We sometimes stop short of asking enough questions.
yeah,
Like, obviously, we wanna look 10 years younger, right? But we call this future pacing. Like, what will that do for our evening? So what will the evening look like? How will people see us now? Painting that picture even beyond just we're looking 10 years younger, it's just by asking one further question, one more question that says,
right.
"So what?" Right? Like, "So what will that do?" Obviously, it's good, but then how will we feel? What will the emotions be surrounding that? And then really playing to that. Sometimes people really need that spelled out for them in storytelling.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's a great point because it always is about how you feel. I was telling somebody the other day that um, I've had a bunch of failures, business failures in my life. And I was saying one of them was when I got involved in fashion, which is a business I shouldn't have been in. And I said I shouldn't have been in it because, well, first of all, I could barely dress myself. So, how I can think I can dress other people is beyond me. But fashion is so emotional. It's not like a consumer product, or it's not like a piece of technology that you can market in a certain way. it's about emotion. Women buy clothing, men buy clothing because of how it makes them feel, how it makes them look, things like that. And so that's a whole. It's just a whole different business. But sometimes, as marketers, we think we can market to anybody, but we
Yeah.
just we didn't understand that business well enough. So,
Yeah, remember they're not buying your product, they're really buying you. Even if you're selling a product, they're really buying you. I mean, why do we care so much about these brands who are more sustainable, more environmentally conscious? These brands who are collaborating with certain celebrities or influencers. We're not really buying the products as much as we're buying the brand. If we were buying just the products, we'd probably go for the lowest priced product, right? Price would be so much more of an anchor in that case. But instead, we don't see that. We see brand loyalty, even to this day when price is such an important factor.
right. Yeah, exactly. It's true. They're not buying. They're buying us. They're buying the whoever's behind it, and that's an important thing. And it's getting more important. I find the next generation of under 45s, they really want to know. They don't want to buy from the faceless, nameless brand. They want to buy from somebody that they know is
Yeah.
producing that product. So
Yeah. It's a tricky balance because they are buying us instead of our products and services. However, that doesn't make us the hero. And that's like the tendency to immediately think that if they're buying us, well, we must be the hero, but we're actually still just the guide. Remember, it's still all about them, but they're buying that future that they're getting because of the relationship with us and our product or service. And I think that's where a lot of entrepreneurs go wrong in their storytelling is they either think one direction or the other. They either think, well, I need to completely separate myself from my brand and just tell my brand story, which is pretty shallow if there's no human element involved, or they go totally the other way and they say, okay, John, you told me that they're not buying my product, they're buying me. Therefore, I must be the hero. And that's not true. You're the guide. I can't emphasize that enough, right? It's Donald Miller has made a whole career out of it because it's so true. People aren't looking for that hero, they're looking for the guide to walk alongside them and help them accomplish their goals, whatever that be: beauty, business success, good tasting food with olive oil, right? You could go down the line. But again, we are the guide, we're not that hero.
yeah, no, that's true. That's true. Um, yeah, so you do a couple of other things though, aside from your StoryTrust media. You're also doing you do podcasts, you do audiobooks, you do voiceovers. How does all that mesh together?
That's a good question. I'm still trying to figure that out.
Ah,
No, I think the beauty is what my passion is audio and visual storytelling. That's consistent across everything that I do. I've just done a few different things to in which that is manifested, right? So I started my career in local radio here in upstate New York in the city called Rochester, and I was an on-air personality. I still am as a contractor, but I worked there as a traffic reporter, on-air personality. Everything that you start off as a young kid in radio, looking to make your name, looking to move to like New York City and make more money and have more wide-ranging impact. But the radio industry really took a hit and continues to take a hit to this day. And I also always kind of had that entrepreneurial spirit somewhere deep inside that said, I want to work for myself. I want my
yeah,
time to be my own. Not just for all the reasons that most people want to be entrepreneurs, that whole, well, I want to have flexibility so I can, take any time off that I want. It's more of the passion behind it and the ownership, because when you work for a radio station, your voice doesn't even belong to you. Your voice belongs to somebody else, right? They literally, you can't even talk to certain people or on certain airwaves. There's a lot of control there. So that's why I stepped out. I'm doing my own thing now. You mentioned voiceover and audio production. Audiobooks, a great way to tell stories, a great way to voice act. That's kind of where the intersection of that is. That was the first thing was, hey, leaving radio, everybody leaving radio. A couple thousand people got laid off from iHeartMedia. What did they do? They all decided that they wanted to narrate audiobooks, right? Like this is the most natural next step. I'll be a voiceover artist. So
yeah,
that's become quite the saturated industry. Yet for some reason, people still think it's like an easy way to make money, and it's really not. But it is a large chunk of what I do on a day to day basis. And then my passion for podcasting has really come up alongside that, and so now I kind of have my hands in both, the voiceover and the podcasting. And certainly there's some overlap to them, but they are kind of two separate things at the same time. So I love it. Entrepreneurship is certainly not for the faint of heart, and if you are faint of heart like I was when you started, you won't be faint of heart after a few years. So that's where I am right now.
Yeah, it's not for everybody. Um, we actually had, I think we had a discussion a couple of weeks ago with James Mulvaney, who was on. He founded podcast.co, radio.co, matchmaker.fm,
Oh,
and a couple
wow.
other things. Yeah. And I think podcasting is the new radio,
Yes, absolutely.
just on demand. And the thing that started on demand was satellite radio,
Yep.
which Howard Stern and all that, which I think really blossomed it. But now I think the next generation of it is podcasting is radio, but also podcasting is television. And I truly believe that this whole television piece of podcasting video, whether it's on YouTube TV, whether it's on OTT channels like we are, or whether it's on wherever it is, I think that's really what's gonna drive the next wave, because you can take the show and just take the audio part of it, and it becomes a podcast. But
Yes.
now Spotify actually has video, so
Yep. Yeah. And that's I was actually just looking at that today, was, kind of the optimizing video for Spotify now too. All these things that you have to think about as a podcaster, because all these different platforms, they aren't necessarily the same aspect ratios, and
right.
that makes it a little bit complicated. And that's also where the opportunity is, and that's what I've built my brand around, is helping people tell their stories through the power of podcasting, because podcasting is something such an underutilized. I know people say, well, there's over 4 million podcasts, but less than 40% of them have reached 10 episodes. So actually consistently creating content through the medium of podcasting, which is such this broad umbrella term, like you mentioned, is so powerful. And that's because now you have this video, you have this audio, you have little clips that come out of it, you have blog posts, email newsletters, and that's really what StoryTrust Media was built on. Is, hey, a lot of my clients are talking about the potential of starting a podcast, but they're not really using it to its full extent. My argument, what I've built my brand on, is that you can create a podcast and have that be your entire content strategy. I call it a content creation engine for weeks and weeks of content, because of the power of repurposing. So I think you're absolutely right. Traditional radio is certainly staying relevant thanks to podcasts. It's staying relevant because it can take all their shows and their content and repurpose it in podcast format. And so they may have a little bit of a leg up in that case, because of the name recognition in a particular community. But podcasting is the most decentralized opportunity for all of us, and that's the beauty of it. As a brand owner, as a business owner, you don't have to invest thousands and thousands of dollars in content creation and worrying about putting out a post every day and trying to reach the right audience. Through podcasting, you can, and you can with minimal time and effort.
Yeah, I think written post content on websites, and I understand the implications for SEO, and I
Yeah.
understand the implications of domain authority and all that. But I think, well, I know that whole part of it is changing dramatically, because AI search, the latest numbers that I looked at were that AI search is getting almost 4 billion searches a day against the 12 billion that Google has. And they were the first, and AI search got to 1 billion searches, uh, 25 times faster than Google got to 1 billion daily searches. So
Wow.
And AI search doesn't really care so much about your written content as much. I mean, it does in a different way. So in order for it to really understand it, you have to write it in a totally different way. Um, so that whole SEO and optimization of your website is dramatically changing. It's changing very
Sure.
rapidly, and so, but AI is also looking at all of your content and what you do. And the difference is that with Google and a website, we've got Search Console, we've got Google Analytics, we've got Merchant Center, we've got your your business listing. You've got all these pieces that are sort of linked in to your website through Google's APIs, right? You go and you attach it all, but there is no such thing for ChatGPT
Mm,
or Perplexity or any of those. So you have to sort of push it in there yourself right now. But I do believe I was on a call last week, and I think AI, ChatGPT anyway, is going to come out with a method to link products to sell through ChatGPT search. So I
mm.
think it's similar to Merchant Center. So it'll be a
Yeah.
feed of products, and then I think they're going to have an advertising platform. Well, I'm pretty sure that they're going to have an advertising platform, and a lot of people are complaining about that, but I don't think that's such a bad thing.
Well, Google did it. I mean, give Google Ads, that's sort of the same thing. It's just GPT catching up to Google in that sense, and it will catch up with the numbers. There are still people every day going, "Whoa, I didn't know what this Chat GPT thing could be doing." So just imagine the adoption rate of everybody's different, right? There's your early adopters all the way up to your laggards. And your laggards are still Googling everything right now. They won't be for long, but they're still doing it. So that 4 billion number is just going to explode. And I would say surpass Google within the next year or 2.
Well, that's Sam Altman's goal. He wanted to out
Yeah,
Google Google.
yeah,
So, and I think he'll get there. But it is a different world. I mean, we were early adopters. We've been using AI for about 6 years in the
yeah.
company, maybe longer.
Really
And
early adopters.
yeah, and I,
Yeah.
I love it. I found the way that we started. Everybody else started with content, but we didn't. We started with data analytics because
Mm,
when you take on a new client, you have no history. I mean, you have all this stuff. You have all the ads that they wrote that they ran in Google ads. You have Google Meta ads. If they're using a DSP, you've got all that, and and trying to sort through it manually and figure out what worked and what didn't work wasn't working for us. And about 6 years ago, a buddy of mine introduced me to this product, and you could just take spreadsheets and put it in, tell it what it is, explain to the system what it is, and explain what you want, and it will take all this data and just rip it apart. And in about 20 minutes, it will give you a report telling you what worked, what didn't work, why it didn't work. And I was just blown away by that,
yeah.
and it just made our lives easier. And then the second thing we started using it for was I found this app called Gamma, which, in my opinion, was it's like the greatest thing in the world because we do a lot of proposals, and you can take the written content, put it into Gamma, it'll give you a proposal. I mean, it's beautiful, it's well done, and that just saved a ton of time. Then we started getting into content development, and we use it for obviously video editing and things
Yep.
like that, short form video. We do have a couple of tools that we use to create some short form video. We put in sort of the foundation, and it'll do different things. But yeah, I love it. I can't live without it, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Me neither, and it's kinda scary, but also, like, that's how the world's going, so it's just a new tool, and if we are trying to live without it, I think we're falling behind and we're not really optimizing our time.
Yeah, I was there was a guy on YouTube today doing a live stream, and he said he made this statement, which I wish that I was the person interviewing him because I would have straightened him out a little bit.
Hmm,
98 his claim was 98% of jobs will be gone in 10 years because of AI. 98%. and that's just capitalism. And I'm saying, I wrote in the comments, you don't understand capitalism, because if 98% of the people are unemployed, there's no money to buy anything. And therefore, there's no money to fund any of this. So if 98% of the people are unemployed because of AI, we're done. Nothing can move, nothing can happen.
Yeah, then we're screwed. Then it just becomes authoritarian because who's going to take over, right? But that's why, if you want to reword that and say 98% of jobs will be different, I could get behind that.
I could get behind that as well. 98% of jobs will be different, but to say that 98% of people will be unemployed or they'll be gone, that's just irresponsible, because if 98% of the people, then they have no money to spend. And
Right.
if they have
Right.
no money to spend, the economy grinds to a halt. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter who's in charge.
Yeah.
It
Then
doesn't
the
matter
two
how
percent.
much. Yeah.
Yeah, the 2% who do have jobs won't have jobs for much longer because there's
No,
no money in the economy.
there's no
So
money in the economy. So what good is AI and what good is technology if nobody can use it because nobody can afford to use it? You know?
right.
So
Right. Yeah. No, and I think that's the power of strategy, right? The power of ultimately, so we can use AI for all these different things, and I definitely do. But what sets somebody apart is the strategy that they can implement, and I know
sure.
your brand does a lot of that as well, with Crunch Growth, and I've implemented that as well, as like these strategy calls, having somebody holding your hand, walking with you through this, creating, in my case, creating content, right? Versus just, oh, send me what you got and I'll cut it up. Okay, then now you've just reduced yourself to a human robot.
Right.
And those are the kinds of roles that are going to be replaced, and those people who just do those things will need to adapt.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that 100%. So, um, what else should we be talking about? We started down this path of storytelling, and
I
then we
know.
wound up going into this whole discussion about AI. So, um, we got to bring it back a little bit. We talked about mindset a little bit pre call. Um,
Yes.
so why don't we have a discussion about that? Because that's always near and dear to me, and I'll tell you why. Because I truly believe, and I'm going to give you an example, a great example. We had a client, and I wrote a whole post about this, about mindset with entrepreneurship, because I've been in entrepreneurship since I was 27 years old. Good, bad, indifferent. I've had a lot of failures. I've had a lot of successes. But when it comes down to it, in my opinion, mindset is one of the biggest assets. We had this brand that came to us. They've been in business for 5 years. They had a very unique selling proposition, very unique, and it was timely. It was the right time to do it. And they came to us because for 5 years they've just been selling on Amazon, and their sales have been stagnant. Somewhere between 500,000 and 700,000, not getting anywhere. And they came to us and they were frustrated, and we laid out a plan. We said, this is how you do it. And this was a perfect example of storytelling as well, because the founder of the company was a woman, and she had a reason why she built this business. And we said, look, here's what we're going to do, blah 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 blah, step by step. And everybody's like, yeah, that's what we want to do. We want to do it. We want to do it. We want to do it. And we started. And literally 2 weeks after we started, oh, I think we just want to go back to what we were doing on Amazon. I'm thinking, why would you do that? I don't understand this. We tried to explore it a little bit, and they're like, no, maybe you could just help us with that. I said, no, we're not interested. So we wound up firing them. And it occurred to me, I mean, it really bothered me for about a week. I was thinking about it. And then I realized that their mindset was comfort. They
Hmm.
were perfectly comfortable in this $500 to $700,000 range. They could handle that mentally. When we started talking to them that this should be a $3, $4, $5 million brand, and we laid out a path to get there, I think it scared the heck out of them.
Yeah.
And we can still see their numbers, and I look at it, and they're just still doing what they always did. And I'm thinking that, and now competitors are in the market eating their lunch. So they no longer have this unique proposition. Now they're just a me too, even though they've been out there for 5 years. They should have dominated the market. Now everybody else is going to dominate the market. And it's 100% mindset.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And what you're saying there makes me think of something, a metaphor that's always stuck with me, and that is that all of us, whether individuals or brands, we have a thermostat set, right? We have a thermostat. Mine maybe is at 70 degrees, yours maybe 80, 90 degrees, whatever. But what does a thermostat do? When it gets too cold, the thermostat turns on the heat and brings it back to 70 degrees and comfortable. But what a thermostat does that we don't often think about is when it gets too hot, it turns on the AC and brings you back. So a brand like that, to me, what it sounds like is, hey, we're comfortable in this 500, 700 range. And that's where our thermostat is set. Now, there might be a lot of heat, a lot of opportunity, a lot of potential, but we always bring ourselves back to that number because that's where we're comfortable. That's our thermostat. So too often in business and in entrepreneurship, I'm guilty of this, terribly guilty of this, and in personal life. We we see the problem as we need to generate more heat, but the actual problem is we need to raise our thermostat. Right, so we need to raise our comfort level. We need to be comfortable with more. We can't just generate and manifest all of this success and then not be comfortable with it, or else it's really just going to lead us back to where we were. So that analogy always, and with brands, it's so true. Like we don't want to hire. I mean, no, I'm just comfortable as a solopreneur, or I'm comfortable with my small team here. I don't want to hire. I don't want to scale. Maybe that's not your goal, but if you're really trying to make the most of what your brand's potential is, you got to raise that thermostat a little bit.
Yeah, I have a couple of young entrepreneurs that I've been involved with for probably 10 years. And they were great guys, young guys. They had an app. They were building an app when I first got involved with them. And I was sort of coaching them. And the app, the app had a flaw. And I'll never tell an entrepreneur that he's wrong, ever. I might say, look at this, look at this, look at this. And you know, but they were pushing. They were doing what they were supposed to do. I mean, these guys were dedicated. They were working on it all day. They were driving Ubers at night. They were making food deliveries, whatever they could to keep it going. And then one day I got a call and they said, "Hey, can you come over to the office and talk to us?" I said, "Sure." And they said, "We realize now what you've been saying for the last couple of years, which is there's a flaw and, we have to sort of fix this before we could scale this. But we don't think that we're ever going to be able to fix it. So we're going to go in a different direction. We learned so much about building apps that we're going to become an app developer house. And we're going to teach people how to run apps, make money with apps, run advertising and understand the metrics, blah, blah, blah." I said, "Hey, that's great." And they've been doing that, but they've been very clear about what they want to be. And they say, "We want this to be a lifestyle business. We don't want this to be a business that we have to think about every single day to drive and get bigger and bigger and hire more people. We want it to be a lifestyle business. We want to be so we can travel and live the life we want to live. Doesn't mean we don't want to grow. It just means we want to grow on our own terms. And we want to take the business as we see it." I mean, they're doing great. They've been doing great. They've got employees, people that are working for them all around. And, but they want it to be manageable. So I think for them, if you can't manage it through tools, and if you have to be in person managing it, that's not what they want.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, and and that's just a example that every business is different, right? Every business gonna have different
Sure.
goals. It's gonna have different, and that's an interesting one, and that's one I honestly don't have a lot of experience in, but I'm sure they were glad to have you around to help guide them, because that's a big thing in entrepreneurship. Find someone who's done it before, right? I mean, that's the whole concept of being the hero and the guide, right? Is that you're best equipped to help people solve the problems that you once faced and now you overcame. And we have to do that in reverse too, and say, hey, you know what, this Phil, he's had a lot of business successes, a lot of business failures. I wonder if I can accelerate my learning curve by having a mentor like him. And so that's powerful.
Yeah. Phil's had a lot of failures.
But notice I said successes too. I mean, with failure comes success. Really, you're just paying down. I love this term that I'll borrow it from somebody from a well-known influencer, but you're paying down ignorance tax, right?
Yeah,
That's the concept that not naming anybody except for Alex Hormozy, but you're paying down ignorance tax, right? And that is the idea of the more you fail, the less you have to learn before success. So there's
yeah.
all sorts of corny ways to say that, like, hey, no really doesn't mean no, it means next opportunity, right? Things like that. However you want to say it, the core truth is still remains.
Yeah. No, yeah, I'm very open about the things and the reasons why. My first business failed when I was 20. I built it when I was 27 years old. The actual business was good. It was the operation of the business that was terrible because of me. It was 100% on me because I had this idea, like a lot of entrepreneurs when they're young. I'm the entrepreneur. It was my idea. I have to have all the answers when you don't. And so I
Mm,
made that mistake. So I failed at leadership. I failed at process development and process implementation. It was terrible. And I truly
absolutely.
feel sorry for the people who worked for me because it must have driven them crazy because it was chaos every day. But the business itself, the foundation of the business was actually very, very good. And I'm very open about it. I talk about it at entrepreneur events all the time about why I failed and why I failed even after success, why I got into other businesses, because you get all puffy chested, like, I had this success and I had this success and, I'm a marketer. I know how to do anything. And then you get involved in fashion and you're going,
Ooh.
shouldn't have been there. Got involved in like, nutraceuticals and that's a whole different world. And, just things like that. And you make mistakes because you get out of your core business understanding. At
Mm,
least I do. And,
yeah.
sometimes my ego, gets me into trouble.
Oh, yeah. This is actually where this is cool because this is where storytelling and mindset kind of overlap because you're talking about a scenario where you sounds like you fell in love with the idea,
Oh, yeah.
not with providing a solution to the problem.
Oh,
If you
yeah.
fall in love with providing a solution to the problem, whether that be your own idea or not, and that's where we fall in love with our own ideas, and then we base our stories that we tell for our brand around those ideas. But if we were to base those stories that we tell for our brand around the solution to the problem that our prospective clients have, now we're really getting somewhere, right? So instead of, in voiceover, people fall in love with the idea. Well, I would love to be a voiceover artist. I can work from wherever I want. I like to talk. My mama said I have a good radio voice, right? That's the idea, falling in love with the idea. What you got to do is fall in love with the solution. So instead of telling stories about when I was young, my mom always told me I had a great radio voice. That's not a story to tell to sell voiceover services. The story to tell is I worked with a client whose brand wasn't audibly cutting through all the noise out there.
Yeah.
And when they started using my voice because of whatever, my deep register or whatever, this is what happened, blah, blah, blah. Dumb example, but that's how that you see, like that totally molds your storytelling as well, just having a different mindset. So I'd say mindset storytelling really overlap, which is where the two pieces of this conversation actually do connect.
Yeah. No, it's the truth. I do have a great positive mindset, and I do have a winning mindset, but I fall in love with the idea, and sometimes, and I'll tell you another thing. I've never, and we've looked at um, hundreds and hundreds of models, financial models for different brands, hundreds of them, and I've never seen a spreadsheet I didn't fall in love with, because
Mm.
everybody models their business, and it's going to click, and it's going to be positive. You're going to have profit from day one, and you look at it and you go, man, this is beautiful. Too bad it's not gonna happen that way, and you have a
No.
hard time. I don't ever say that to people. I, I I used to mentor at the University of Maryland School of Entrepreneurship, and these young guys always come out with these spreadsheets, and they're beautiful. And I don't ever say your idea is bad, because I really don't know, but I'll tell you, look at this, look at this, look at this, and I'll never tell you your spreadsheet is wrong, but I will tell you, I will ask a lot of questions like, do you really think that's going to happen? What do you think the possibility of that is? Have you tested anything? Have you done anything? No, 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 no. Okay. Because what's going to happen is you go out there, none of that's going to work. None of it's going to come true. It's all going to be different because you're not taking into account. I don't say this to them, but we talk about it. But you're not taking into account sale prices. You're not taking into account discounts. You're not taking into account the cost of getting your product into retail, onto the shelves, slotting, rebates, discounts, accruals. It's a different kind of world. But I love a good spreadsheet.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it looks but if it was easy, everyone would do it, right? And the
Oh,
spreadsheet's the easy part.
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Everybody loves people, they fall in love with that. Everybody wants to
Right.
show you, they want to show you their 40-page pitch deck and they want to show you their spreadsheet. And I always say to guys, get it down to 10 pages. Nobody wants to sit there and as you go through 40 slides, they want to hear from you anyway. They're the investor is investing in you. You have to make him believe that you can execute that plan, not that the plan is good. If you have a problem they're solving, that's step one. Step two is now you have to convince him that you're the guy to solve that problem.
Yeah.
And that's what he's going to make the investment
Yeah. Yeah, and so the adaptability piece of that is so important too. Like you mentioned, we were talking about falling in love with the idea, and like in theory, they all work, right? But obviously not most businesses aren't successful. I feel like, I don't know, I'd like your opinion on this too. You have a lot more experience than I do, but tell me if you feel that this is true. I feel like the successful entrepreneurs are the ones who adapt. The unsuccessful ones are the ones who fall in love with their idea and they can't see it any other way.
Oh, absolutely. When you build a business in a vacuum and it's just what you think is going to happen. No, 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 no. I've never met a successful entrepreneur. And we've had, this show's been on for 4 years. We've had hundreds of them. They all talk about the pivot. Everybody's had to
Yeah.
pivot. I've had to pivot. I continually pivot. We pivot the business every day in
Yeah.
different ways. So yeah, no, if you're stuck, yeah, you're gonna, and I've seen it. We actually, we got involved with a gaming system and that guy, he just would not take coaching and he was dead set on what he thought. And we kept saying, you might wanna, he was like, this is what we're going to do. And unfortunately it failed.
Mhm.
And so,
Yeah.
yeah,
I I worked with somebody as well who's a voiceover artist, right? Because I've done a little bit of voiceover coaching on the side, and the business mindset of that is everything, and it's exactly what you're talking about, this ability to adapt and to put the ego aside and realize that the way you've always done it or
yeah,
the way that you think it should be done, if that's not what the market demands, that's not going to be successful for you. This guy was this deep voiced guy, and boy, he had a killer voice. I'll give him that. He had a killer voice, but he thought that every ad had to be read with such gravitas and such this announcery, like, hey, crunch growth, like very intense movie trailer type vibes, and coaching him was so frustrating
yeah,
because
yeah,
it's like that's not what the market demands right now. And yes, I know it worked 30 years ago, but that was 30 years ago.
yeah,
Times have changed. Now what people want in voiceover, you got to pivot to that authentic kind of I'm a real human kind of voice. And now especially in the age of AI where real human voices are harder to distinct from automated ones, that's so important. So that's the adaptability piece that you're talking about there. Are you falling in love with what you think the business should be, or are you falling in love with what the market is actually demanded?
right. So how do people get in touch with you if they want your services?
StoryTrust.media is how you can learn more. John at jonathangoehring.com is my email. Best way, honestly, LinkedIn is amazing. I
Yeah,
love LinkedIn. I think it's
yeah,
the
yeah,
it's the way to go. That's where I am. I connect with most people up there who request connections. Certainly, if you shoot me a DM and say that you heard me on Phil's show, I'd be happy to connect with you and just talk through maybe your content needs, maybe if you're considering starting a podcast, giving some pointers, and all of those things. But yeah, LinkedIn, just search for Jon Goehring, and I'll be the first one that comes up.
Okay, great. So big thanks to Jon Goehring for joining me today and sharing his expertise on the art of storytelling. So if you're a brand or entrepreneur looking to stand out in today's crowded digital world, remember your story is your superpower. So you want to learn more about Jon's work, check out StoryTrust Media, Jon Goehring Voiceovers, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss an episode of Crunching Your Growth. I'm Phil Masiello, reminding you that your growth story is waiting to be told.